A coup d'etat is performing an all-or-nothing maneuver. There is no in-between. You succeed or you fail. A short while ago, several soldiers of the Benin armed forces, led by Lieutenant Colonel Pascal Tigri, tried to seize power in the country. They failed. Why did it fail? And why did coups in surrounding countries succeed? Let's discuss. In Benin, a group of soldiers attempted a coup, but it failed, according to the Ministry of the Interior. A spokesperson for President Talon said the situation is under control and the president is safe. He called on the population to resume their normal activities. 14 people have been arrested for participating in the coup attempt, according to the government. The soldiers announced on state television that they had deposed the president and that the government and parliament would be dissolved. They also said they would take over all government agencies. The group, which calls itself the Military Committee for Reconstruction, said a military leader had been appointed for the country. Shortly after the announcement on TV, the government acknowledged that an attempt had been made to stage a coup, but a spokesperson said it involved only a small group, and most of the army remained loyal to the president. The group is said to have taken over only the television broadcast. Regular broadcast has since resumed. The area of modern Benin was once dominated by the kingdom of Dahomey, founded around the 17th century by the Fon people. Dahomey was famous for its disciplined army, including elite female soldiers known as the Amazons of Dahomey. The kingdom grew wealthy through warfare and participation in the Atlantic slave trade, selling captives to European planters along the coast. In the late 1800s, France expanded its colonial influence in West Africa. The French forces defeated Dahomey at the end of the 19th century, exiled its king, and turned the territory into the colony of French Dahomey. Under French rule, traditional political structures were weakened and the economy was reshaped to serve French interests. Dahomey became part of French West Africa with limited political rights for its population. French Dahomey gained independence on the 1st of August 1960. The early post-independence years were marked by political instability and military coups. In 1975, the country was renamed Benin after the Bight of Benin to avoid favoring any single ethnic group. After years of Marxist rule, Benin transitioned to a multi-party democracy in 1991, becoming one of Africa's earliest examples of peaceful democratic reform. In the early hours of December 7th, 2025, a group of military officers went on Benin's state television to proclaim the removal of the country's president, Patrice Talon, the suspension of the constitution, and their seizure of power. Initially, there was considerable uncertainty about the outcome of this attempted coup. The military personnel who spoke on state television were clear. They stated that the security situation in the country had become untenable. That is why they wanted not only to depose President Talon, but also dissolve all political parties and close the borders. The latter could have had major consequences for the region. The economic capital, Cotonou, is an important transit port for goods to surrounding countries. In any case, this coup attempt shows how fragile the situation in Benin is at the moment. Soldiers are very frustrated that terrorist groups are gaining more and more ground. Dozens of soldiers have been killed this year in major attacks, most of them carried out by the Al-Qaeda-affiliated JNIM, a group that has been active in many other African nations since 2017. If the coup attempt in the Benin had succeeded, it would have been the 9th successful military takeover in West Africa in just 5 years. Only days earlier, soldiers had seized power in Guinea-Bissau, while election results were still being counted. For leaders of ECOWAS, the West African regional bloc, this was the final warning sign. The attempted overthrow of President Patrice Talon was seen as one crisis too many. This time, ECOWAS reacted immediately. Nigerian warplanes struck rebel positions at Benin's national TV and radio station and at a military base near the airport in Cotonou. At the same time, ECOWAS announced it was sending ground troops from Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast and Sierra Leone to protect the elected government. West Africa has been rocked by coups since 2020, and less than a year earlier, the military governments of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger had completely withdrawn from ECOWAS, despite being founding members of the organization. So when soldiers tried to overthrow another civilian government, ECOWAS leaders decided this coup could not be allowed to succeed. Beninese loyalist forces had already pushed back early morning attacks on the president's home and government offices, regaining control in most of the city. But a group of rebel soldiers continued to resist, showing they were willing to use deadly force. That's why Nigeria, the region's largest military power, stepped in. President Bola Tinubu authorized airstrikes, while ECOWAS fast-tracked the deployment of ground forces. This rapid response reflected lessons learned from Niger in 2023. Back then, ECOWAS hesitated. By the time it threatened military action, Niger's coup leaders had already consolidated power, secured the army, and rallied public support. Faced with the risk of a full-blown war, ECOWAS backed down, relying instead on sanctions and diplomacy, both of which failed. Benin was different. President Talon was still firmly in control and could legally request help from regional allies. Just as importantly, there was popular support in Cotonou for defending constitutional rule. Many Beninese citizens do have grievances with Talon's government, especially the exclusion of the main opposition party from upcoming elections. But Benin has a strong tradition of political change through protest, civilian society, and elections, not military force. Beninese people are proud of their country's role in leading peaceful democratic reforms across Francophone Africa in the early 1990s. When rebel soldiers appeared on national television to announce the suspension of the constitution, there was no wave of public support. Instead, most of the coup plotters quickly went into hiding. While many of their complaints were widely shared, almost no one supported removing the government by force. If anything, public anger grew as reports of casualties emerged, including the death of a civilian closely connected to the presidency. Security forces have since rescued senior officers abducted during the coup attempt, though the ringleaders remain at large. The attempted coup fits into a wider pattern of instability across West Africa. The region faces Islamist violence, economic pressure, youth unemployment, and growing distrust of political elites. But coups don't all happen for the same reasons. In Guinea, the 2021 coup succeeded partially because President Alpha Condé had finally crushed opposition and forced through a third term. In Mali and Burkina Faso, soldiers turned on civilian governments they believed were failing to fight jihadist insurgents. In Niger, President Bazoum's close ties with France and internal military tensions weakened his position. And in Gabon, a blatantly manipulated election triggered the army's intervention. In Benin, however, the rebels misread the public mood. Despite frustrations with the government, there is no appetite for violent or radical change. And that miscalculation is ultimately why Benin's coup failed, while others in the region succeeded.